I'll call upon one by one these mentors on the stage to take on the seat and thank them on behalf of Thai Pune and Lufthansa. So I will first call Radha. Sanjeev, please. I request Kiran Deshpande sir, please come on stage. Vishwas sir. Mr. Anil Puranspe. And Vikas. Now we'll just have another 15 minutes if you have any questions and their valuable insights overall to conclude today's mentoring camp. Yeah, we start with Mr. Kelly.
I would like to know, I mean, it's for all panelists. It would be good to know the distinction between being investor friendly and being value friendly. So how do you express your thoughts on that? Something is making it so, putting up so that the investor is impressed versus making business, would there be a dichotomy?
I don't think there is a dichotomy. Okay. First of all, a story can be made only that much better and sexier, but it has to have an inherent sexiness in it, and most investors will see through that. So just making it appealing to investors is, if it doesn't have substance, is simply not going to work. In the rare cases, you may be able to fool people. It doesn't appear at that time. Fooling somebody with money is more like a hindsight. But I don't think that there is really any dichotomy. What you need to do, however, all of us, I think, kind of said that you need to think a lot about your business. You need to think, as Vikas said, a lot about, can this be a 1 billion story? Not just how do I actually, articulate it as 1 billion story. You need to pay attention to what Kiran said and said, theoretically it can be a 1 billion story, but how exactly am I going to get there? Is there a chance? Is there a path or multiple paths that I can, and then what do I have to have in terms of capabilities, strengths, what do I need to get in terms of team and so on and so forth. So you're always thinking what is the right for your business, and then articulating to that investor is the articulation, making sure that they understand, right? There can be, just last point on the projections, just because investors will get interested, you don't make, really big projections, because if they start asking you questions about some of the assumptions, think the story starts falling flat. And the worst is, they are going to assume, as Vikas was saying, that the guy simply doesn't have a clue as to what it takes to build a business. I'll give you an example. I have multiple times, and this happens always in marketing and sales front, because many techies understand what it takes to build a product because they have experience in that. But you will hear people saying, I'm going to make some 2-3 crore revenue in the first year. And if you say, well, how are you going to do that? How many salespeople? Well, I'm going to hire 20 salespeople to do that. And that just simply tells me that this is the guy doesn't even know operationally. What does it mean to hire people? How much time it takes? Can you actually get them productive in order to deliver value to the customers worth 3 crores so that you can recognize that revenue, so on and so forth. So think from your company point of view, what is right? Make that story strong because you need to deliver that value to yourself and your customers and investors. Then worry about how to articulate it to the investor.
Yeah. If I've given you the impression that I was talking about window dressing, as Anil is saying, that was not my intent. You have to be in the right business. The point I was trying to say is that you have to figure out the right business. See, at the end, investor friendly is basically if you are doing a great business and you can explain it to him, you're through. Right? So he is to be doing a great business. The point we are trying to again and again make is, if you're not doing a great business, then you need to actually shift to a great business. Just PPT may shift to a great business, like, people keep saying, if you give me money, then I will shift my, currently I'm doing X, but I know X is not viable, but I need the money to do Y. Right? That's a bad idea. You must be doing Y and asking money for Y. So the point we are again and again trying to make is, if you don't think you're doing $1 billion business, then you need to look hard, but actually do $1 billion business finally. Right? Then only you're going to get invested anyways.
Question, follow up to that.
I didn't mean to say that he portrayed it that way. He in fact said all those things as to if the story is not $1 billion, then first make it $1 billion if you need to get in front of the VC. And by the way, not everybody needs to. You can build a lifestyle business and not worry about VCs, etc. You earn 1 or 2 crores a year, and that's a fantastic way to live, I would say. Forget about VCs work.
Yeah. If you can make a business of 1 crore, do it. Yeah. Don't raise any funds at all. Best life of it.
I have in my own business, I haven't raised VC money, and for a foreseeable future, I don't think I will.
Okay, so follow up to the why, right? So what I am coming to the angel funding part. So what are the ranges in which today we are getting the valuation for angel funding, and what should the why be for a startup which has just probably got his first 10 or 100 paying users?
So see, typically just, back of the envelope numbers, right? Again, don't hold them, it depends a lot on the flavor of the month, etc. Okay, but basically if you have just started and you maybe have reached a proof of concept level. So India में paper funding बहुत rare होती है. So if you are on paper, chances you are going to get funded is very less. So usually the funding seriously starts at a POC level. At a proof of concept, if you're getting a valuation between 3 to 6 crores, I think it's a fair valuation. Right? Once you get a little bit of revenues in the story, or a couple of 4, 5, 6 customers, or you're doing a revenue of let's say about 5 lakhs up to 5 lakhs a month, a valuation between 6 crores to 10 crores is a fair valuation most probably you should be looking for. Right? After that, the bumping happens based on the flavor of the month, based on how much revenues. By the way, a couple of caveats in that. The revenue is not proportional. So if you do 5 lakh revenue and the valuation is 8 crores, let's say, if you do 20 lakh revenue, does not mean your valuation is 30 crores or 20 crores. After some time, people don't care of so much revenues. Once they have a faith in the idea, whether you're doing 10 or 20, they're broadly okay with it. Similarly, profit का भी वही story है. Whether you make 0 profit or 50,000 profit or 1 lakh profit is not very significant. If you make a crore of profit, it's very significant. But within minor ranges of you're making loss of 50,000 or you're making profit of 2 lakhs, the valuation does not change significantly. So those are not really too much worrisome numbers either ways.
I don't want to sort of oppose you, but I just want to leave thought here, and this is a direct case. I won't take the name of the founder. A first time at above 15 crore angel round, valuation angel round has been done, but it is qualified by the fact that the idea was extremely good and the founder had tremendous credibility. First time founder though, first time founder. So all I'm saying is, but because this is a good idea, but there can be a triple century sometime.
Yeah, these are basic.
So if you can see the triple century, go for it.
Yeah.
There are enough people who have raised crazy amounts and crazy valuations at first time. Right? These are just back of the envelope numbers, just to start off.
The idea of, see, one of the things I would leave here, let's say somebody gives me 20 crore valuation. Suppose, let's say Vikas believes Kiran gives me 20 crore. Now, I have a difficult journey because it's not that I won't reach $1 billion, but it's a, trek to K2 mountain or whatever. So, if I want to show progress to the investor, it's not, I want to make sure that if I can bring it down to, 15 crore or 12 crore, so that I can show some value, upside, and investors, my critical investors feel good. Anyway, I'm going to reach, 1,000 crore or whatever. at that stage, 8%, 6% don't make sense. Make these calls. I think very important thing is to look at the business outside it. See, most of us look at it inside and we keep justifying every time. Try and destroy your own idea by sitting outside the way investors look at it. Then you will come to right conclusion for that.
Just one point on this, there is a caveat about early round high valuations as well, because remember, this is not the only round. You'll need more money and there will be future rounds. When you start high, the next round, the expectation in the next round investors is that there is a significant jump in valuation because you have actually proved some value significantly, right? Otherwise, two things may happen, right? If you haven't made significant progress and starting to run out of money, then there will be a big question as to what the valuation is going to be, because nobody is going to probably be willing to give you a significant jump from the first valuation. Because it is always questioned, 15 crore valuation mila in the intervening period, what has the company achieved actually? So, these things somewhat logical, somewhat rational, they kind of go hand in hand. So don't look at this in isolation of, this round, let me get through this and, I'm not saying therefore turn down a high valuation, okay? By all means, no. I'm just saying that there are consequences and many times the consequences are completely unintended and unanticipated. Many times we don't think about it. The other thing is, by chance, if the next round happens to be either marginally higher or somewhat lower because things really didn't work out the way you thought, then these anti-dilution measures, which can be really draconian, that comes into the picture, and that can really screw your happiness. So think a little, 2-3 steps ahead as well, because the investors do, right? As I said, I don't want to invest in a company today, even though the company is asking only for 1 crore or 2 crores, unless it is going to feel like $1 billion, because I know I'm going to sell my stake to a private equity guy, and he is not going to be interested in the company if the company is not earning revenues of 50 crores or not. And only even after that, he will say, well, today it's 50 crores. If this company doesn't seem to have a path to 500 crores, I'm not going to be able to sell my stake. So I don't have to, or I should not be thinking only what is required to the next investor. I need to keep thinking about that ultimate investor who will finally, give returns to everybody. Same thing is true for entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah, I have a question. In the current investment ecosystem, we know that most of the companies where the investment has happened have scaled really high, but there hasn't been any profitable ventures coming up. Now, how does an investor see the business proposal, whether after third or fourth year, whether it is going to be profitable or it needs to be more scalable? How do you view that, both these scenarios?
I think every from this question is definitely asked that how come Flipkart is not profitable yet it has high valuations?
Which was take a shot at it?
No, there's really no answer for it. So many times, first of all, your assumption that a lot of companies that are getting funded, are actually, that's not the right assumption. What you're seeing are actually very few examples that are often talked about and storied. There are a lot of other ventures which are not able to make the cut in spite of the investment that has gone in. We told about 1/3 not making the cut at all, right? Okay. I think if your question is why are some loss-making, companies.
Sorry, I'm not saying why loss making. I'm saying when I'm putting up a proposal to, let's say, Anil, I can have a two kind of projection. Fourth year onwards, I may be profitable, or
Right.
I can continue investing, infusing capital
Right.
into building up scale.
Right.
So which one would excite Anil, for example, if I take
So most VCs you find at the growth stage, where they are getting funded, still not really worried about profitability. are the ones who are trying to change the basic behaviors of a large consumer population, right? Now, large consumer population like Flipkart or Amazon who are trying to change the behavior for buyers from brick and mortar to online. Now, even today, online is only barely 2%, right? So you look at the headroom. So if you make enough investments, the headroom for growth is quite large and value creation is very, very large. That's where you are actually seeing a lot of investment going in spite of the profits. But I would, for a startup in general, I think at some point, very, very early on, unit economics, profitability, customer, money from customer rather than from investor become very important. You know, those are the metrics that I would highly urge you to look at.
So for me as a founder, it is very important to get into profitability because then I don't need to dilute my stake. If I keep continuously scaling up my business, that's probably I need to keep diluting.
That is actually a very fine balancing act you have to do, which is the profitability in the short run versus profitability in the large run. Versus, see, when you make profits, it also connotes that you are actually compromising some investments which would allow you to scale. So, you know, that varies, right? And that
You need to build a capitally efficient operation. That is the first thing. So whatever capital you have, you need to deploy it efficiently. That's what the investor wants. Now, you may be cash flow positive, you may be profitable. You may be profitable, again going to cash flow negative because the opportunity is bigger and you're investing that money and you're raising some money. So all of this happens. See, there is no one way to do it. You have to look at your business and see what makes sense. There is no one way to do it.
No, I mean, nothing different. I just try to explain why this confusion. And this confusion is kind of, short-lived. I think Vikas used the word flavor, right? What you're seeing was the flavor at that time. And you probably are, if you're aware, you should be reading quite a bit about how investors have suddenly started looking at profitability and so on and so forth recently, right? So if you go 3-4 years back when Flipkarts and Snapdeals, etc., started getting funding, then the thinking at that time was very similar. If you can imagine, Amazon was there, the poster child of e-commerce. Took a long time to actually profitability, the company. But that doesn't mean the investors in Amazon took a long time to profitability. Investors actually profited much, much earlier, right? Including Bezos and everybody. So, Amazon is there. India is a huge country. Only 1 or 2% or whatever online. Huge headroom. Comes Flipkart. Okay, we can build another Amazon. And it is okay if this company takes 10 years to profitability, because there are going to be bigger and bigger investors such as Tiger Global and so on and so forth, who are going to make investment decisions, because that is how it has been done in Amazon as well, and for good reasons. I'm not saying they were fools, right? Company actually did become profitable with the scale of operations that they have, but I think I will be able to flip my investment in about 2 to 3 years at a significant jump by investing in Flipkart, even though it is far away from profitability. If I think that they can build a story around GMV, a big GMV, right? The gross merchandise value. And for that, if I need to put 100 crores, so be it. Because I think I will be able to get a value of 1,000 crores in about 2 to 3 years.
So you really touch that point. Now the challenge here is that all the investors would keep making money, whereas I may not be making money. When I dilute my stake, I need to infuse everything in capital. I don't get anything out of that.
No, it is not so. I mean, you are assuming that in every successive round, you are the one who has essentially not always sold any of your stock, and only investors are flipping their stock.
No. I'm saying I'm diluting, but I, as an individual, I'm not getting anything. It is all getting infused into the capital. Is it?
The stake that you own, right, early, yeah, there was dilution, so you own fewer and fewer percentages. But in later rounds, the you can actually sell some of your stake to the new investors as well.
Oh, I can give that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Why do you think, these, when you think the Bansals are essentially still college dorm types with, no money in their pocket besides salary? No, those guys are making their own investments in startups. They are becoming, some of the big early stage VCs themselves. Where does the money come from, you think?
Yeah, it is quite normal to exit at later rounds. Early rounds, your investor will insist that you don't, right?
Also, Bansals draw a salary of about $7 million, so forget everything else here.
So even if you remember Pitt Hill IPO, the founders exited substantially, and a lot of money went to them.
No, people, you'll always have opportunity to exit 1% or 0.5%. Problem ulta hai. The founder does not want to exit. He gets greedy. Because if Tiger Global is so keen.
What stage are you right now?
No, we have just become operationally positive. We are going to raise the first.
How big is your company?
There is a very small.
Small company ना, तो वहाँ जाने के लिए बहुत टाइम है अभी, जहाँ है वहीं सोचो ना फिर.
अभी क्या है ना, नेक्स्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट के लिए जाना है, इसलिए मैं पूछ रहा हूँ कि
करेक्ट. सो नेक्स्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट है 5 करोड़, 10 करोड़, 15 करोड़. वो जर्नी देखो, जर्नी देख लो, लेकिन उस पॉइंट को मत सोचते रहो, यहाँ देखो, यहीं से आगे जाओगे.
How do I project 30-year profitability project? How to make a route?
Depends on the business. Profitability है तो ठीक है. अगर if the company is doing well and you are investing and your cash flow negative, and if it's a good story as he says, that's fine. That's fine.
See, it depends on the market, accepted norms. So, e-commerce up to now it was accepted that you can live without making profit. Today, if you're opening an e-commerce company, you have to show profit. So, it depends on the norms, right? So, for example, if you're a tech company, you have to show profit in the next 3 to 5 years. Right? So, depending on the market and what people understand of that space, it's very obvious from the space perspective whether it has to be profitable or not.
And I just want to say one thing here. I think there is just too much of this thing on e-commerce. I'll give you 2-3 other examples. If you have a product company in the telecom space, it takes 2.5 years to create the first customer, and your first money in the bank comes nearly after 3 years. But when the money comes, it's a gravy train that happens. So you may have a model very differently. So understand the model of where you are. If you have a disruptive technology company, you may take say 4 to 5 years before the market catches it. So it all depends on, and
Tesla or something
exactly, Tesla.
SpaceX.
So understand your market, understand your solution, understand that, and then bring these things. Otherwise, it's a confused lot. Like I think somebody said, well, I'm confused.
Yeah, as he gave a great example that went beyond or away from e-commerce. We are looking all this froth in, because of e-commerce. But if you think about it, if you go, maybe 10, 15 years back in that intervening period, valuation drivers have been multiple, depending upon the kind of company, etc., etc. For example, in really hardcore hardware VLSI space where I come from originally, companies have been bought and sold based on IP. Companies have been bought and sold based on people behind the IP. How many heads? $250,000 per engineer. Now, this, almost feels really, inhumane that, I've been valued, right, as an engineer, being valued at $250,000 or whatever.
1.5 million per cash, 4 million per.
Yeah, so drivers have been different. In e-commerce, the driver has been this GMV. Previously, there used to be, millions of eyeballs. So, forget GMV. Just because, there are a bunch of people peering at your website, that has driven valuation. Finally, however, you talked about profitability. That story and that conversation never goes back, right? Because finally, the chickens have to come home. Finally, value has to be delivered. Finally, profits have to be delivered, etc. So, if you can build that story, by all means build that story.
Great. This has been a very interesting session. Sanju wants quickly, we can have one more.
Just in closing, so a couple of months ago I was on a panel at one of these Symbiosis Institutes which promotes entrepreneurship. There are about 300-400 kids in the audience. And during the course of the panel discussion, we asked them that how many of you, when you eventually get started up, how many of you think that sales or marketing or operations or people would be your biggest challenge? And for all of these questions, there was a smattering of hands. And when one of the people, then the question was, how many of you think that getting money will be the problem? Nearly everybody raised their hands. I'm not surprised to see that every question here was relating to the money aspect, although we got some great information on, how to build a business model, how to scale a company, and how to do marketing and sales. So you guys are in great company, and this company will remain this way for the next 10 years.
Thank you, everybody. These topics, all of these 4-5 topics that we selected, definitely when you saw the content, thanks to the mentors who have, curtailed it down to 45 minutes. Actually, those are, 2 days and maybe year-long, topics. So thanks to the mentors for being here for the entire day, almost a day now. And we thank you all for being a part of this mentoring camp. Thanks to Lufthansa, who has been supportive in this particular initiative. And looking forward to see you in our upcoming events. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to the mentors. Thank you.